Welcome to another creepy episode of Horror Movies and Scary Stories, where actors, along with special effects and scary music, bring my original screenplays to life. Not long ago, I saw a documentary on the horrific crimes of serial killer Albert Fish, and I thought to myself, what could happen if this horrible person's ghost appeared and started killing again? I quickly wrote The Gray Man, Wisteria Cottage. There will be 3 of these shorts in a series, each taking place at another remote building where Albert Fish, also known as the Gray Man, killed his unsuspecting prey. Now, last episode I mentioned a Friday the 13th fan film by Jason Pitts on YouTube titled Voorhees, Night of the Beast. Now, I know many of you went to watch this, and I want to tell you Jason Pitts is now currently filming a follow-up to this that you'll be able to watch on YouTube as well. And it also features our lead actor tonight. Now that title will be Voorhees After the Beast. And speaking of the actors, our lead tonight is C.J. Bernard. He is playing Carl Joseph. Matt Spees is playing the Gray Man, and he will play the Gray Man in all 3 episodes. Dwayne Michaels is Billy Masters, Joe Fantasia as Walter Crowley, Ingrid Young as Mary Lawrence, Emmy Mullen as Grace Spud, and I'm Tracy Jules, your narrator for this evening's creepy episode. Enjoy, folks. It's late in the evening, 1951, in Irvington, New York. A brief rainstorm rumbles and passes over the area. A small shack with a tin roof sits off Mountain Road. It's late June, early summer, and the humidity is rising with nightfall after the rain. The shack's front door opens as a young black man, Carl Joseph, 17, fit, athletic, exits the home. He eases the door closed with a gentle click. Carl walks to the porch's railing, climbs it, then hoists himself up, ascending to the roofline. He removes his shirt, lying on his back upon the wet tin roof, looking up at the stars.
I remember those summers in my father's home in the 50s. The heat of that New York day in that cramped house made it unbearable to sleep. But my daddy's roof, that tin in the nightfall was colder than anything I knew after the rain.
He dots the sweat on his forehead with his shirt.
I'd stay up on that roof, cooling myself and staring off into the night sky. You don't see stars like that anymore these days.
Headlights beam down Mountain Road in the distance.
I'll never forget that night in June. I was lying on that roof just to get some cool air when I saw their car. I knew who it was right away. Can't mistake a burnt orange 1950 Buick Skylark. It stands out like a sore thumb in a nail hammering competition. It was Billy Masters' car, the one his rich daddy bought him last year.
The car gets closer, rolling past his home and turning onto a dirt path near a vacant home opposite Carl's house on Mountain Road. They turn off their lights. Carl sits up and watches them. The car pulls off to the far right of the home and begins to drive into the tree line, then parking. We move across the street to Wisteria Cottage. The house is regal with its expansive wraparound porch, green shutters and turret-style second-story window, but it is in need of some TLC. It's been abandoned for years. Built into the hillside in 1860, its walkout basement level serves as a third floor of living space. Across the vast lawn heading out from the woods are Billy Masters, 19, a wealthy greaser, Walter Crowley, 18, his sidekick, and Billy's girlfriend, Mary Lawrence, 17, a sweet and innocent girl.
I watched them get out of the car. I know what they were there for. They wanted to see where it happened. Where Albert Fish killed little Grace Budd in 1928. They weren't the first, and I'm sure they weren't the last after this night. But something got to me that night. I don't know what, but suddenly I wanted to go watch them. I wanted to see what the house looked like or what they were going to do. Just call it curiosity, I guess. But living across from the murder house my entire life made me want to go inside. Even though Daddy warned me to stay away.
Mary pulls back on Billy's hand. She's hesitant, but he puts his arm around her neck, winks, tilting his head towards Wisteria Cottage, and she agrees to walk with the boys. Walter turns on his flashlight as they get closer to the house.
And if you don't know the story of Albert Fish, known as the Gray Man, then I'll be brief. He was a sadistic serial killer. In one instance, he posed as a rich farmer hiring Grace's brother. But once he got to the Budd house to meet them, he saw the brother was a strapping young man, and Albert wouldn't be able to overpower him. So he talked to the Budds into letting him take Grace into a grand party. There'd be cake and ice cream, he said. But there wasn't any party. She never got any cake or ice cream. Death. She only got death that day.
Carl watches as the teens pull and pry at the basement level windows, flashing the light inside. Walter taps Billy. He points. Billy nods to go up on the porch.
Albert Fish had Grace wait outside on the hilltop by the second story. He went upstairs, undressed not to get blood on his clothes, then called her to come in. Directing her upstairs, he hid in a closet. Once she was inside the room, well, he killed the poor girl and ate her. Yeah. He cut her up, took her body parts back to New York City, and ate her, burying what pieces he didn't take of her on the property. She wasn't the only person he did this to. She would be the last. Since then, I know kids have come to this house. I was never really sure what they were doing. I just had to see it. See them.
Carl watches the three teens try to open the front door, then Billy tries another window on this level. Carl begins to lower himself off the roof like a cat in the night, maneuvering a fence with ease. He jogs down his dirt road to Mountain Road. From here, he can see the flashlight moving within the first floor of Wisteria Cottage. He jogs to the back of the property, standing on the hillside before he creeps to the front of the home. Inside Wisteria Cottage, Walter leads Billy and Mary in through the window of the first floor.
Billy, I think I want to go home.
Don't be a drag, Mary.
You mean don't be a wet rag like she always is?
Walt, Daddy-o, cut the gas.
What? We didn't need Mary here to have a bitchin' time.
She's my girl.
Nifty. Go play backseat bingo in the car.
Billy hits him lightly in the arm.
Ooh, ow.
Well, now ain't that a bite?
It's okay, Billy. I'm okay now. I won't flip my lid. I'm sure I'll have a ball.
Now she's cooking with gas. Come on, let's find something gory.
Mary and Billy walk behind Walter, using the flashlight to look around. Billy opens a built-in cabinet filled only with dust. Mary remains uneasy. Behind them, Carl peeks through the window from the front porch, then backs up quickly to stay unnoticed.
Why doesn't anyone live here? It's a nice house.
It's a murder house? What a dumb question, Mary.
Walt, be nice.
Didn't he kill her on the second floor?
Both boys stop walking.
See? We needed her.
I would have remembered that.
Sure. Uh-huh.
On the second story of Wisteria Cottage, the trio crest the top of the stairs when Billy teases Mary and tickles her.
Stop it.
I'm gonna get you.
Stop it.
I'm gonna get you.
She laughs as he tickles her, then they both stop. She looks at a bedroom where the moonlight is streaming in behind her, illuminating the room and an old love seat that sits inside it. Coyly, she backs in the room and with one finger calls him in.
Come here, big boy.
Billy smacks Walter in the chest.
Be right back, Daddy-O.
Walter is confused, then annoyed. He sighs as they close the door.
She's afraid to come in, then... What a drag. That's okay. If I find something, I'm not sharing it with you two.
Outside of Wisteria Cottage on the hilltop, Carl walks around stretching to look into the second-story windows. He can see the flashlight bouncing off the walls.
I could see them moving around. Then all of a sudden, something starts to transpire in the window. I wasn't sure what I was seeing, so I strained my eyes to see more.
An apparition of an old man begins to appear, gradually fading into form in one of the windows. The ghost's clothing is gray. His skin is gray. His hair is gray. But the whites of his eyes have an eerie redness to them. He glares at Carl.
Then, the bouncing flashlights move into the room the ghost is in. Very oddly, he turns his neck to look behind him. Like his neck turned all the way around and then back again. Then he puts up one scary gray finger to his lips like, shh, be quiet. So I just stood there. I froze.
On the second story, Walter enters the room the gray man's ghost was in. It's dark, his flashlight only lighting small spaces at a time, the moonlight not illuminating this room as much. 2 closets flank the one wall in the small room. He opens the door on the left, when the main door behind him creaks to a close.
Hey, Daddy-O, whatcha?
He assumes it's Billy.
Billy? Hey, where did you...
He spins around with the flashlight. No one is there. Walter walks over to the door and opens it, peeking his head out into the hallway, looking both ways as he lights it up. He can hear giggling from the room next door, and some kissing too.
Jeez.
He walks back into the room and over to the closet, searching through some boxes left in it. Slowly, that main door creaks closed behind him, but this time, it slams hard, causing Walter to
Ha!
jump.
What the hell, Billy? Knock it off, that's not funny.
His light searches the room and settles on a gray mist forming in the corner over by the window.
What? What is that?
The gray mist dissipates. He breathes a sigh of relief when the second closet door behind him gently opens. The creaking gets his attention. Gradually, Walter turns around, and his flashlight lands on the gray man. Standing in the closet, red-veined eyes stare at their target. His shock to the event leaves him standing still, frozen as the gray man flies across the room to his target, grabbing Walter by his throat and slamming his body to the ground. Inside the bedroom, Billy and Mary hear the commotion in the other room. She stops kissing him.
What was that?
Nothing. He's just trying to stop us.
She starts to kiss him again when she hears what sounds like a body hitting the ground in the room next to them.
There it goes again.
He's just messing with us.
Outside of Wisteria Cottage on the hilltop, Carl stretches his neck to see what is happening inside the room he saw the gray man in. The flashlight bounces around the room. A loud thud. Then the flashlight stops moving.
I didn't know what was happening at that moment, so I waited and watched. Suddenly, the ghost reappears in the window, and he stares at me. It chilled me to the bone, like he was looking into my soul. Then he begins to lift his arm, and this hideous smile appears on his face. It was
Albert Fish holds the severed head of Walter Crowley,
Oh my God. Was that?
his frozen face in a torturous cry of pain.
Oh my God, it was Walter.
Fresh blood dripping from the opened wound.
Oh dear
Albert
God.
cackles.
It can't be real.
Albert cackles. He then reaches with his mouth, lowering the head towards his face as he pulls on the severed flesh, biting the dangling skin from where he ripped it off the body.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing, so I ran. I ran as fast as I could. Oh dear Lord, did I really see that? Did he just eat his flesh?
Carl runs and stops a short distance away, looking back over his shoulder.
But something made me stop and look back, like a force inside me.
The window is empty.
The ghost was gone, but then, I don't know how to say this, but it was like he was beckoning me to come back, so I moved closer to the house.
Carl walks with careful steps looking at the window, his body shaking uncontrollably.
Then, and I wasn't expecting this, but he appears in the other window. I couldn't see him as good, so I kept moving closer to the window.
Albert's ghost appears in the window of the room Billy and Mary were just in. He looks down at Carl with that scary smile, then, just as last time, his head begins to turn all the way around to look at Billy and Mary standing behind him. The moonlight streams in from the window on the other side of the house. Albert's ghostly face turns back to Carl. He laughs, then falls backward, disappearing as he does.
I knew I had to help. He was going to kill those white kids. I couldn't let it happen. So I ran to get my dad.
Carl runs fast across the lawn and reaches Mountain Road.
I couldn't tell my dad where I was, so I went back to the house thinking it was a joke. I decided I'll go in the same window they did and see if it was true. But I'd be quiet, very quiet, so they didn't trick me again.
Carl walks back to the house and slips in through the open front window. Inside the bedroom, Billy is pulling Mary's hand as she tries to walk away from him.
No, come here.
Stop being a bad boy.
I could have sworn it's what you wanted.
She walks over to the only closet in the room.
I wonder what's in here.
She opens the door, and with the moonlight, she can see rope and strips of faded sheets lying in a pile on the floor. Billy grabs her by the hand and pulls her back to him towards the love seat.
You're so bad.
You make me that way.
The creaking closet door rolls to a close, then slams shut. They jump.
Oh my god. What was that?
She looks around the room.
Okay, I'm ready to go home.
The stairs creak as Carl ascends them.
What was that?
It's Walter. He's trying to scare us.
The closet door creaks back open, revealing the gray man.
Billy?
Daddy-o, you know
Billy?
you're bird dogging it.
Billy?
Knock it off.
Look.
She keeps pulling at Billy's arm while he is facing the opposite way, as if he's waiting for Walter to walk in that room.
Billy!
What?
Billy turns, but it's too late. Albert Fish's ghost flies at them with the ropes and the strips, eerily chasing him. In the hallway, Carl reaches the top of the stairs.
I kept telling myself to look in the room, that it was just a joke, that they knew I was there and they were messing with me. And the nightmare of what I thought I saw wasn't real.
He finally braves the moment and sneaks a peek inside the room where he sees the headless body of Walter lying on the floor. The flashlight is illuminating the pool of blood that envelops him. Carl gasps as he covers his mouth, stifling his own fear.
But it wasn't a joke. It was real. Very real.
Carl moves back into the hallway up against the wall, breathing heavy, shaking. He's terrified. Carl hears movement, muffled crying, and small steps scraping across the floorboards in the next room. An eerie voice interrupts the void.
Looking for something, son?
Carl's head turns towards the sound of the shuffling, muffled cries and that dark voice beckoning him to look. He moves with careful steps until he can see what it is in the next room's doorway.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Come hither, young'un. Got some good things planned for you, too.
The gray man has a rope around Mary and Billy's neck, hands, waist, and feet, with the strips of sheet in their mouth stifling their cries. They beg him for help. The gray man floats above them, holding the rope that they cannot break free from. Mary and Billy gasp and choke.
I had to run. I had to run.
Terrified, Carl runs from the building. Inside Carl's shack, it's dark and he's in a full sweat. He quietly enters his father's bedroom, tapping him on the shoulder until he wakes up.
I needed my dad's help. I needed him to save those kids from that thing, that horrible creature, the thing that used to be human. So I woke him. I motioned for him to come out of the bedroom so I could tell him what happened. When I did, I'll never forget the terrified look on his face. He told me that he had heard a story like this before. But then he asked me a very strange question. Are they alive? That's what he asked me. I didn't understand why he was asking me that, but I was so crazed with what I saw, I nearly screamed for him to run and help them.
Carl grabs a flashlight. Then he and his father run out of their house. His father grabs a pitchfork and an axe that were lying in their yard. He hands the pitchfork to his son. They both run to Wisteria Cottage. Inside the bedroom, the gray man lowers himself to the ground and drags the screaming couple further into the bedroom. The door slams. He looks at them as if they're a meal.
I can't reach you now, but I can have fun. I can drink in your pain.
He whips the rope hard, and they both fall on the ground onto their backs.
Oh, what pretty eyes you have, my dear.
Slowly, Albert Fish's ghost reaches into his pelvis area and begins to pull out a 4-inch long needle. Then another. Mary's eyes pop with fear. He moves to her face as she closes her eyes, tears streaming down her face. He floats over her.
Thy eyes, oh, the eyes.
He has a pin in one hand as he reaches it to her eye. Briefly, she opens her eyes to see what is happening and she begins to shake her head. Billy struggles to help, but he cannot. The ghost holds her head still as she shuts her eyes. Muffled screams fill the air as she struggles to move. He pushes the long needle all the way through her eye, sealing the lid closed. She screams through her confinement, popping her other eye open in hysteria. He uses another needle to do it again to the other eye. Then with the last needle, he pierces her top lip, pulling hard on the bottom, closing the lips together over the sheet in her mouth, all the while she withers in pain. A cat and 9 tails appear in his hand. He begins to whip her face fiercely until it's a bloody pulp, and her lifeless body has stopped fighting its constraints. Now he turns to Billy, who is trying to wiggle his way out of his bonds. The ghost eyes Billy's crotch, and his zipper begins to open on its own.
I like the young helpless boys.
The ghost reaches his hand down, pulls out the appendage, and cuts it off. Muffled screams only encourage the ghost's wrath.
I'm not done yet, son. Tasty.
Downstairs, the father and son make noise entering through the window.
We have company.
A dark laugh emanates from the ghost. A nail-studded paddle appears in the air. The ghost reaches for it and begins to hammer Billy's face. On the stairwell, Carl and his father move upward. They reach the first room where Carl shows his father the headless body of Walter, his flashlight covering the entire room, and all the horror it holds.
I then pointed him to the room where I thought they were. But it was quiet. Deafening quiet. I was afraid of what was going to happen around the next corner. So, cautiously we moved, inch by inch.
Albert's ghostly aura begins to appear near the door. Carl's father pulls him into Walter's room and up against the wall out of the sight of Albert's ghost as it heads down the stairs. Ghostly footsteps can be heard. The men move out of the room and quietly into the next.
By the time we reached the room Mary and Billy were, well, it was too late. They were gone.
Carl's father pulls his son to the doorway to leave when they hear ghostly footsteps on the stairs.
Come out, wherever you are.
Carl's father grabs his son and pushes him into the closet, turning off the flashlight. He puts a finger up to his lip, then holds up the axe. The footsteps get closer, louder. The men wait for them to enter the room. The ghost moves out of the room and continues down the hallway to another room. On his father's command, they open the closet door. Before they can exit the closet, Grace Budd's ghost appears standing there in a mist of gray. She looks lost, confused, and terrified. Softly, she speaks to them.
I don't know where I am.
I almost burst out in tears, but my father covered my mouth.
I don't know where I am.
He said, he'll hear you.
Carl's father pulls his son, and they're headed towards the door. They do not take their eyes off the apparition of Grace Budd.
He'll come for you and make you gray. He made us all gray.
The men quickly head downstairs.
He made us all gray.
A loud creak from the stair makes Albert's ghost stop and turn a grotesque face, looking for his next victim. The men make their way out of Wisteria Cottage onto the vast front porch, then running across the yard to their property line. They stand looking at the ghostly figure of Albert Fish fading back into the house.
My father said he couldn't leave that ghostly plane.
Father and son begin to disagree.
There I was, telling my father we had to call the police to report what happened, and I knew we couldn't.
The two men turn towards their house. Outside of their small shack, the men approach it.
My dad was right. They would never believe me. A black man out of school to help on his daddy's farm. It was even worse back then. 3 dead white kids. And 1 black kid that saw a ghost killed him. They'd never believe me. It was sad. They would never see justice for their deaths. I could never tell anyone. Ever.
On their porch, Carl looks back at the house with raw emotion, heartbroken over what he could not prevent. His father hugs him.
He whispered to me, "We can never tell a soul, son."
His father enters the shack.
I never did tell anyone what I saw that day. Here's the crazy thing. It took the cops weeks looking for those missing kids. Weeks. They finally spotted the car parked on the Wisteria property. But when they searched in the house, the whole house, inside and out, the bodies were gone. Only blood stains stood on the floorboards.
The darkness of the night feels thick like its humidity as Carl stands staring at Wisteria Cottage.
I wondered what happened to the bodies. Did animals eat them? All of them in 3 weeks' time? And carry off their bones? Did I not see what I saw? I mean, they were 3 well-to-do white kids that just went missing. There's no way they wouldn't be with their family or friends. They weren't like that. They loved life, so yeah. I saw them die that night.
It's 2020 and it's the morning. Carl, now 88, sits facing a desk in his son's law office. A photo of him and his son, along with many family members, adorned the desk.
And as I sit in my son's office, waiting for him, the only conclusion I could come to was that old Albert Fish ate those bodies. Somehow. Some way. I know it sounds crazy, but what I saw was crazy. So, it was certainly possible.
Carl looks out the window behind his son's desk with a great view of New York City.
I did well in life after that horrifying event. I took care of my father till he passed. My kids did well too. And that's why I'm here today. Because my son is about to buy a property in New York City where old Albert Fish killed one of his prey. And it's now 23 years again since his last appearance. Every 23 years he has shown up in one of those buildings he used to kill in. Most people believe it was because his first victim was 23 years old, but some would argue that his ghost appears every 23 years because that's how many victims he had. No one knows for sure. And do we need to know? Or is it more important to prepare for his coming every 23 years? I think it's the latter. At least I can save someone this time. Anyone. And maybe break this cycle.
Carl's adult son enters thrilled to see his dad. Carl rises to greet him.
This is going to be one tough story to tell.
Carl's son helps his father back in the chair and takes his seat behind the desk. He eagerly wants to visit with his father. We fade to black. Thank you for listening to tonight's episode. Make sure you come back for the next 2 in the series, and please subscribe. Stay scared, my friends. Stay scared.